Hello everyone, this is Arwin. It's been a while and I may have actually forgot that. Yeah, just in time. Yeah, it's been a while, but I thought that considering the circumstances and the debates that have been ongoing at Nathan's for a long time now, I thought I'd do another hangout about gravity, or as some insist on calling it, or just not mentioning it at all, the downward force. And so, yeah, I have a new subject or a rehashing of an older subject. And looking back upon my original hangout, gravity exists, gravitational pull does not. I think I almost got the gist of it, but I was still kind of like, I wasn't really certain yet as to how to even approach it, but I did already notice there were clear mistakes being made by many flat earthers that insist upon saying no, gravity doesn't exist. It's all density and buoyancy. I already felt that no, that there's something wrong about this. And in the recent hangouts at Nathan's, uh, yeah, I pretty much figured out how exactly that doesn't work. Because density and buoyancy is rather an aspect of materials, how you say, properties of materials when a force is applied. And of course, in the world, there's always a force applied, the force that is generally called gravity, uh, which is always downwards. Although ballers insist that it is downwards towards the specific center point of the Earth, which I don't uh, agree to. But there's at least a force downwards, and this causes materials uh, of different densities to basically divide themselves. The more dense materials go downwards, the lighter materials go upwards. And they eventually settle, and you get these different layers. And that this was pretty much, we talked about this at Nathan's, and pretty clear. But this doesn't always work like this. It doesn't always arrange itself in these different density layers in all circumstances. And you can prove this. And one of the most important proofs, there are actually two I could mention, two proofs that disprove that there is just density and buoyancy, that there's actually a force applied that causes this effect. And that is, for starters, uh, a local centrifugal force. If you would, for example, take uh, let's just say test tubes in this typical centrifugal system. If you put different materials in this test tube, different densities, and shake them around and you just let them hang, they divide each other, they divide in the different layers at a typical speed according to the force of gravity, the downward force. But if you spin them very, very, very fast, much faster, applying much more force than the gravity, then the division will go a lot faster. And this is actually very usable, and it is used in laboratory experiments to quickly divide the layers in their respective densities. So when more force is applied, then the buoyancy and density effects will be faster, and it can also be negated. And you do this by, well, it's not that easy to do, but I remember in school seeing, well, NASA videos, not about space in this case, but I remember seeing a video with the famous dive plane where they simulate zero G circumstances. And that's probably the only way they can ever actually physically do it. Yeah, I don't think they use it a lot these days. I think they prefer to just use CGI. But This diving plane system, if the plane dives down in a specific angle at a specific speed, then the downward motion cancels out the force of gravity, and you can fine tune this until, well, the effects of densities and buoyancy are cancelled out. So if this plane in a moving in a normal horizontal angle would have an aquarium, let's just say, or a bucket, a transparent bucket with different materials in it, like oil and water and mud or whatever, custard, whatever you want to use that in that experiment, then eventually the layers will settle normally. But if you shake this around and you go in the dive and you look at the bucket, it's going to just erratically float around. Density and buoyancy will not be in effect because the force that causes these effects, the density and buoyancy, gravity normally, is cancelled out by the downward motion. So, just to get that misunderstanding out of the way, there is a force, and this force is generally known culturally as gravity, and it's there. Density and buoyancy is not that force, it's an effect caused by that force. It's a property of material caused by this applied force. And if you apply a force differently, like for example through centrifugal force, then the distribution will be different. It will adapt to the direction of the force. And that's just how density and buoyancy work. So there is definitely a force that is present in this world everywhere. It's universal. Uh, and yeah, I call that force gravity. And there seems to be a lot of allergic responses to this from many people. And I kind of get that because, yeah, especially as flat earthers, you do get constant nonsensical arguments based on gravity, how gravity is supposed to explain everything, how gravity is supposed to keep the air stuck to the ball, opposing the outer space vacuum, uh, how gravity makes everything relative to the center of the earth and bends observations basically, and it warps everything. It's a very, it's a, the gravitational pull concept is a cornerstone to the entire globe cosmology concept. And I understand that, well, as we're trying to prove the truth, the actual shape of the earth, actual workings of the things on this earth, that when you constantly get bombarded with scientism arguments based on gravity, that you want to just get rid of that word. But I don't I don't think that's a it's a wise thing to do, because gravity has taken grip in so many things in the world's cultures, and there are many sayings that use the word gravity uh, in a wide variety of senses, and everybody kind of understands what gravity is. When you don't get into the nitty gritty details, then everybody, as a first response, when you say gravity, they know, oh, that's like basically what Neil deGrasse Tyson did, dropping the mic, that proves gravity. He's kind of right. But what it doesn't do is prove the actual cause of that effect, which scientism falsely explains is gravitational pull, matter being drawn to other matter, which is it is what is originally what gravity was uh, first. It was first introduced as gravity, and then the explanation of gravitational pull was then put in there. But this is a false explanation. It doesn't make the word any less useful. And I sometimes wonder, what did they even call it before that? Did they even have a name for it? Did they just use it as a little g in the physics formulas? Did they have a name for it? Did they call it the downward force? I don't see many references of this word even being used. So what did they call it? Could it be that even before the theory of gravitational pull, that they actually just called it gravity? Could it be? I don't know. It's gonna be lots of debates about this, and I bet a lot of flat earthers are just going to continually deny that that is the case. There's no literature of this, but yeah, if you want gravity to mean gravitational pull, and this is part of a control mechanism of the mind control of the world, then wouldn't you then remove the original use of the word entirely? Wouldn't you try to erase that from literature? Just think about that. I think the word gravity is pretty good, and I think that downward force, although I guess it's correct, it just doesn't feel the same. uh, how are you going to use downward force in cultural texts, in sayings? It doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't have the same effect. So that's why I say, let's keep the word gravity, but let's detach it from the concept of gravitational pull. Let's be honest here, say that gravity does exist, but we do not know what causes it. There are many speculations, of course, still, especially among flat earthers, of course, what causes this gravity. And people still speculate that it is related to magnetics somehow. That some kind of magnetic setup is going to prove that a force could be exerted, and that should prove gravity. But yeah, how are you going to prove that? I don't see that happening because gravity so far seems to be a very constant effect. It's not fluctuating. There's no distinct difference in gravity in a specific location compared to another location. And even when the globe theorists and their spinning ball concept try to speculate that the Earth's spin, the centrifugal force, is somehow going to cause a difference in measured force, that the gravity is compensated by centrifugal force, then even that amount of compensation is so minimal. It's like last I heard it was like 0.3%. Then is that really such a big difference? It seems like gravity is constant everywhere, at any height, uh, at any location. So that makes it a constant, and that kind of counters the idea that it could be in a direct way magnetic related, because all magnetics affect all of them. They're all very local. They're all very fluctuating. It, like whatever strength a magnetical effect is going to have, it's always going to be divided in fields that have ranges and that have distinct change in their force applied, whatever type of force that may be, depending on the distance from the origin point of what actually causes the magnetic field. So it just doesn't fit. It it could never really be magnetic, in my view currently. Could still be proven wrong, but personally I think that when it comes down to it, it's more logical that gravity could be caused by centrifugal force, in a very bizarre concept that the Earth could actually be a very large tube that is rotating, and that our land masses, our realm, is basically one segment in that giant wheel that would make it almost perfectly flat. And if that would be rotating, then the centrifugal force of that rotation could cause a stable type of downward force that could kind of fit the gravity measured as, yeah, as it is measured on this world. But yeah, that's a pretty detailed, elaborate, and bizarre setup. And yeah, for that to actually work, you'd have to really, really get into proof that Either the world is concave in a singular direction, making the world's surface of this ring pretty small, or there has to be a lot of landmass, and it's going to be north and south because it's pretty, yeah, east and west. It's a limited amount of space, so there's going to have to be a lot of landmass to the north and south to make that work, and the Earth be almost perfectly flat. So there's a lot of complications, and thus it remains extremely speculative as to what actually causes the gravity effect, the downward effect that we measure. So that was my little speech for now. Let's see if I got everything. Yeah. So let's also look in chat for a moment. So, seem to have a lot of supporters these days, and I thank everyone who has been very nice to me, who's been very supportive of me. It's very encouraging. So, starters, Alan B. He's not a flat earther, but I think he's a funny guy, and yeah, it's always good to have him around. He's never mean or anything, so I like him, even if he is not a flat earther. I see three Moire. Hello, welcome. And Jose J.G. Gonzalez, welcome. And Alex Quaint, thank you for your uh, unwavering support. Glad to have you in chat. Lono, hello. And who else is here? Flatlander, good to have you. Psychics Warrior, good to see you. Nick, hello, Nick. Great. Plain Truth, good to see you. Warren Thorson, welcome. And who's this? Okay, no, it's probably a troll. Phase, hello. Yeah, if you guys are going to be trolling, then I'm going to be blocking. This is not Flat Earth Debates. This is not Nathan's Hangout, just so you know. Hey, hello, Supreme Looming Non-Standard Refraction Hyena. Good to see you there. Daniel Reza. And Renee Ibar Lucia. Yeah. So let's see if there's a lot of response there. It's going to take a time to read through that, but first I see here yeah, from Renee Ibar Lucia, says the cause of our magnetic field is at the magnetic Mount Meru. The Garden of Eden is here. Well, that seems to be one of the theories, one of the mythologies of the disk flat Earth model. But yeah, there's really not any direct proof of this. It seems that overall, when we miniaturize magnetics, they do seem to conform to rings and disks and spheres, to donuts, as it were. So that would kind of imply the disk shape, but doesn't necessarily have to be the only way magnetics can be applied. Uh, if you have a straight row of magnets facing one direction very consistently, and you have the same setup on the other side, then magnetics could also be just pointing in a singular direction. And this is a necessity basically for the setup of the rectangular looping flat Earth, where the North Pole would not be a point that is at the center, but it would be the magnetic direction towards the north. But on the other hand, as we've also have seen demonstrated recently in the flat Earth debates, is that the magnetic map is pretty much all over the place, and the magnetic intensity map, uh, well, it seems to be fluctuating in irregular ways. That is one thing, but then again, even the magnetic direction map is all over the place. There doesn't seem to be any consistent north and south magnetic direction. It's all over the place. So that kind of derails the entire concept of a magnetic center at the north, or any consistency basically in magnetic direction. It seems that a much more reliable method of orientation is the globe of the heavens. And this is what the what is well said by people that explore the oceans, or are said to explore the oceans, and used astronomy to explore, to orientate themselves, because the the angular relations of the globe of the heavens seems to be much more uh, consistent and how do you say, without variation in its relation to the earth. So magnetics seem to be much has seemed to have become a lot more unreliable to orientate on the earth, or to let alone to determine the shape of the earth by the magnetics present. And I think the globe of the heavens are much more reliable to actually determine the relative locations, although yeah, doesn't actually prove the literal shape of the earth, of course, but at least you can more easily space out what the relative distances are between land masses based on the angular relations with the heavens. But yeah, there's still no way to really define how those relations are absolutely yeah, to actually get that done, you'd have to measure everything with a ruler to the extremities, and that is just very complex to do. And there, I personally need to do a lot more experiments, land experiments, and comparing it to angular relations with the globe of the heavens to determine if the Earth would be rectangular looping, or if it were to be a disk. So yeah, it's gonna take a while, and opinions are going to be divided about that. But one thing that I do know sure is that the heavenly bodies are intangible. They cannot proven to be physical. The sun and the moon are not physical objects that rotate over the disk in a circle. They seem to all be moving uh, with angular relations in accordance to the observer at an arc, like a globe, and that's why I call it the globe of the heavens. I have, by the way, a picture that I'm going to use. I'm going to put myself in there once I get a good photograph. But I'll this picture, I constructed it, but it was basically the base foundations are rendered by Chris Monk Seeley, and I really appreciate his work in that. And this kind of shows, in a very basic sense, how the rectangular looping Earth surface would be like, and then you still have to imagine that it's actually interconnected, because it's now just the like a square, and how the globe of the heavens would be surrounding the observer, no matter their location. And now it's basically suggested that it's centered around the center point, because yeah, it's always going to be surrounding the observer no matter where he stands. It's always going to be in relation to the observer. So, but this is going to be a picture that I'm going to use, and maybe even use as a thumbnail for the show eventually, once I'm satisfied enough that yeah, that I like it. And yeah, at least some better pictures to show for instead of just old maps. So thank you again, Chris Monk, for providing me with the CGI to make this. And yeah, very much appreciate for all your contributions with the group, and your scientific insights, physics, everything. So how's that? dear. Uh, so yeah, that's basically it. I guess it's not that much. I just wanted to put in a word to get the misunderstanding out of the way that gravity is there. It's a force. You can call it the downward force. It's not gravitational pull. What causes it is to this day unknown, at least to us. It doesn't doesn't mean that there's absolutely no one that actually knows it, because who knows, maybe the elite, let's just say the elite, that have extensive equipment available to them, that have secret knowledge available to them, actually did figure out in detail and have tested it even as to what exactly causes this gravity. We, as flat earthers and the general public, are not in the know as to what causes it. But we do know it's there, and we can measure it, and we can figure it out, how it works, and what happens when it's negated. So gravity is not density and buoyancy. Gravity is part of density and buoyancy, but if it's taken out, then other forces can be applied that would cause the same effect, but in different angles, basically. So, um, yeah, and let's not take away the word, because everybody uses this word and they basically mean the downward force. And it's just, well, I guess I have to say, I just like the word. I like the word. It's very straightforward. It already means basically heaviness. Like the entire concept of gravitational pull is a fallacy in itself. It is suggesting that heaviness pulls other things, and this is the fallacy. This, it's already hidden in the word, but gravity itself is basically heaviness, and that is very clear. It's pretty clear what it means. You can trace back the roots of the word, and I don't know, let's not abandon it. Let's just get the misunderstandings about it out of the way. And let's deal with the psychology that, yeah, we just don't know what causes it to this day. And yeah, it's very hard for some people, especially well studied people, to accept this, to accept that you don't know something when people may have had false explanations or unproven explanations as to what causes it. And especially when I was younger, I had this too. I always wanted to find explanations for everything. And then when I believed in an explanation, I accepted it as true. But now that I'm older, and now that I'm in this flat earth community and in the debates and figuring out the scientific method and all of that, starting to realize more and more that that's a psychological effect, that we have this need to understand the cause of things, and that we basically do not accept not understanding the cause of things, that it causes an unrest, a feeling of lack of grip over reality itself if we don't understand what causes it. So we fabricate these explanations as to what caused things, even if we are not entirely sure. And this is even widely accepted and misunderstood. And the elite and their brainwashing system have been abusing that psychological effect, this necessity of people to understand things, even if that means believing in something that you're technically not sure of, that you can't really prove. And we should really just figure that out and get honest about what we do and what we do not know. And it will be a lot healthier for you, and it will be a lot healthier for people around you, because yeah, it's what many religions do. It is basically give explanation to things based on a theory or an insight or a belief or a story, but yeah, there's no proof for that. People just believe it. Doesn't mean that everything that is said or treated in religious doctrine and texts are all wrong, are all just complete hogwash, but means that just the way that there are parts of it that are fictional and that you cannot confirm. So yeah, just be honest about it. Anyway, I'm gonna call it for today. Uh, I don't have any plans for another hangout anytime soon, although maybe I will come up with a new subject or retreat another subject, refine it a little bit more. But for now, yeah, you can find me on Flat Earth Debates at Nathan Oakley's channel, uh, and I try to be there every day. It's getting very interesting. I really love it right now. It really seems like we've gone to like a physics class discussion model uh, of a group. Like we're really debating the actual physics, and I love it. It feels to me almost like I'm back in school, and now finally I'm with open-minded people that are willing to really go into the details and really work it out. And I missed that when I was a lot younger because I also wanted to do it back then, but there weren't that many people that were willing to draw scientific consensus into doubt. And I really love that I can do that here, that I can just really make my case in certain aspects and just see people debate each other and then suddenly notice what they're doing wrong or how they're misunderstanding something and just jump in there and point it out and clarify things. I love it. I love it a lot. So thank you a lot, Nathan Oakley, for providing that platform for me to do my thing there. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys there in chat. Uh, Please don't forget to upvote my video, and if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. I'm still trying to reach those 1,000 subscribers, and despite not having a lot of shows, it seems like my channel has gotten a lot of new subscribers, and I'm very thankful for that. So thank you everybody who's new and has subscribed and is now seeing this video. Uh, yeah, please keep following me and leave a comment in the comment section after the video is over. If you want, if you're going to be trolling, if you're going to be spamming globe nonsense and ridicule, I'm just going to delete it. And if you have anything interesting to say, or if you actually have a more open-minded suggestion or something you want to question about my model, then yeah, I will respond to it. But don't go trolling on me. So that's it for now. Thanks everyone for coming, and keep it flat.